First of all, just so you know what you're going to get in this training, I'm going to be covering business dinner strategies. We're going to be talking about staying on track with nutrition, even if you are an executive who has to travel and eat on the road a lot. This is for you if you have frequent business dinners or meals with your clients or your team. And especially for you if you're noticing that when you eat out, the scale goes up and it stalls your progress towards your fitness goals. My name is Molly Van Marth. I'm an executive health and fitness coach, just in case we haven't chatted on here before. And so I love to share strategies, tools, and techniques that help you drop often the last just 10 to 20 pounds that doesn't seem to come off. And I also help my clients regain lost muscle mass while optimizing their energy. A lot of times you might notice that if you're trying to lose weight on your own, you either lose muscle tone or you are sacrificing your energy to lose some weight, which is not good if you're an executive, right? So anyway, today we're going to talk about eating out and how to do that successfully. I've got two different methods that I use for my clients. I'm going to walk you guys through what those are. And hopefully this will be helpful to you if you are the person that eats out a lot and you're wanting to continue to make progress even though you're eating out, okay? So the first strategy, I'm calling this the go big strategy, right? This is for you if you're wanting to eat a bigger meal than normal. So if you are eating at maybe one of your favorite restaurants, or there's going to be a lot of good food and you want to be able to enjoy it, this would be a strategy that could work for you. Now, this does not mean you go into that meal not planning for it. It doesn't mean you go into that meal not tracking any of it. It doesn't mean that you eat super poorly, but this would be a meal that you would maybe call a cheat meal. Okay. So, it doesn't mean that it needs to be perfectly clean. That's kind of what I'm referring to this as. Now, this would be the strategy you use, again, if you're wanting to splurge. So this means slightly heavier than normal. This shouldn't be an all-out binge. If that's happening to you, probably means your diet is not balanced elsewhere, or you don't have hunger prevention tools and techniques in place, which is something that I teach my clients, but it's kind of another topic. This is also another thing that I need to tell you guys is you have to track your food to use either one of these strategies correctly to where you get through that meal successfully and you wake up weighing less the next day. You have to be tracking your food. Again, this is probably a bigger topic for another time, but if you are in a place of treading water and you're not losing weight and you're also not tracking your food, that would be like a company not making money, not profiting, and being like, well, we have our employees are working really hard. Our team shows up every day. I guess we'll just keep doing what we're doing. We're not going to look at any numbers though. We're not going to look at data. We're not going to look at numbers, and eventually maybe we'll be successful. That's the same kind of logic. There's a lot more to say with tracking, in order to do it in a way that doesn't take over your life. But long story short, we definitely want to track data if you're serious about reaching fitness goals. So for both of these strategies, you do need to track your food. And again, how can you possibly know if you're hitting targets or blowing right past them if you're not tracking your food? So even with this first strategy of being able to enjoy a bigger meal, you still need to be tracking your food. The strategy that we use to be able to enjoy that bigger meal and not ruin all of your progress is something I call calorie budgeting. As you can guess, very similar to budgeting money. You need to know your calorie range. So this is how many calories you can spend per day and still lose weight. Sometimes that's difficult to figure out on your own. And that's where it can be helpful to have an expert assess truly where you are and really how many calories you need to eat so that you're not eating too many and not losing weight, and you're not eating too little and being really tired as you drop weight. So anyway, you need to know your calorie range. Really important. It doesn't need to be an exact number, but you should have some kind of, range. So for example, 200 to 2,200 calories a day. That's a doable range, right? And once you know what that range is, this is why knowing your targets, knowing your data is important. When you have that established, then you know how many calories you have to spend on a daily basis to where you still make progress, right? And once you have your calorie range dialed in, you can reserve calories at the meals that are not that big dinner. So like, for example, if dinner was the meal that you were going to be eating out, maybe with your team or a client, and you wanted to have a bigger meal or your cheat meal there, you would need to eat less at breakfast and eat less at lunch. Now, I do not suggest not eating anything. That can actually be something that does set you up for an all-out binge or just eating way more than you intended. And that's not even enjoyable, right? So I do suggest that you eat protein and low-calorie vegetables. This is because they contain fiber at lunch and at breakfast. And reason being is we have hunger hormones in our bodies that I don't care how much willpower you have. if you go into a really tasty meal totally fasted and you're really hungry and your hunger hormones are elevated, it's going to be very hard to exercise willpower at that meal. So I would much rather have you eat things like protein and fiber to lower your hunger hormones so that you're more likely to be able to enjoy that meal, eat things that maybe you wouldn't typically eat, but not overdo it. All right. Tangible examples of what I mean by protein and low calorie vegetables. You could have egg whites at breakfast. You could also throw in, you could do like an egg white omelet. You could throw in some vegetables for extra fiber. At lunch, you could do grilled chicken and a veggie stir fry, or you could do grilled chicken on a salad. You could do a protein shake somewhere in there. Again, I highly suggest eating protein at all times of the day and at your big meal, but definitely beforehand so that your hunger isn't off the charts when you show up. Just to show you guys what an example of this could look like, let's say your calorie limit or range is about 2,000 calories a day, maybe 2,000 to 2,200. You could eat 30 to 50 grams of protein at breakfast and lunch. You could do that by just, spending about 350 calories per meal. And that still leaves you 1,300 calories, which you're probably not going to want to eat more than that for dinner. And you could eat 1,300 calories at dinner without going over your 2,000 calorie limit for that day. Now, again, you still have to track here, right? Just like with money, the idea of budgeting money isn't so that you don't ever spend it. It's so if you want to spend a larger chunk of money, you got to budget somewhere else, right? We can't create something out of nothing. And the same goes for food. So if you want to have a bigger meal, I suggest budgeting calories earlier in the day. Again, eat protein, fiber leading up to that meal, and that way you can enjoy it. The second strategy, and this one would be good, if you didn't plan in advance for that dinner out with your clients or your team or whatever. If you have a pop-up meal and you're going, okay, I didn't reserve calories beforehand, I really need to stay within my targets. This would be the strategy that you would use, okay? And really, it just comes down to choosing smarter selections from the menu and having the awareness and having the education of how to do that. And that's why sometimes people look at a menu and get overwhelmed and they just end up ordering whatever, is because no one's taught you how to do that. So that is something I definitely work on with my clients. Meal prep doesn't work for your lifestyle if you're an executive, because you're going to be constantly faced with these types of situations where you do have a menu put in front of you. And you need to know what the best options are for you to choose. So obviously it depends on what your targets are. It depends on what your goals are. So this is something that would be different depending on who I'm working with and what their goals are. But as a general order of operations that you can follow for putting a plate together properly and ordering in a smart way, when you're at a restaurant, you've got that menu in front of you, this is what I suggest doing. Okay. And this would work, honestly, whether you're eating at Chick-fil-A or a very nice steakhouse. This is just an order of operations that is wise to follow. The first question you would want to ask yourself is, where is my lean protein source? And again, like I mentioned from earlier, protein is going to really diminish your hunger. It will drop your hunger hormone called ghrelin. And that really puts you in the driver's seat for things like portion control. Okay. So that's the first thing you want to make sure that you get on your plate. Like I just mentioned, lowers your hunger hormone called ghrelin. Also, protein contributes to lean muscle mass, less body fat, strength. A lot of processes in your body need protein to work. So protein is something you should just be having in your meals in general. Examples of that, again, this would be more like steakhouse dinner kind of stuff. Shrimp cocktail is a great appetizer that is high protein, very low calorie. Grilled chicken. Obviously, anywhere you go, they're going to have grilled chicken. So whether this is something you have as a main or something you add to your main, that's a great option. There really are no excuses. Again, even if you're in an airport food court, they're going to have grilled chicken somewhere, I promise. Skirt steak. This is a lean kind of steak. Great way to get in a lot of protein. Also really tasty. Grilled sea bass, scallops. Okay, pretty much all seafood, you guys, is going to be very, very high protein and relatively low fat as long as it's grilled. I would always say go for grilled. The second question you need to ask if you're going to get the benefits of eating protein is, how much of it do I need to hit my targets? So if you are, and we could get further into this in another training, but let's say you weigh 200 pounds, you're trying to lose some weight, I'd probably have you eating roughly 200 grams of protein per day. So if you eat 3 meals and a snack, you're needing about 50 grams of protein per meal. Okay. Now you're not going to get the benefits of eating protein unless when you sit down at this meal, you go, okay, great, I've picked my protein source, but how much of it do I need to hit 50 grams and make sure I'm not going under on my targets? Because if you don't eat enough protein, sometimes people say, I eat a ton of protein and I have them track their food, and I do a nutrition audit and I look at their food logs. I'm like, you are eating less than half of the amount of protein that you should be eating per day if you really want to lose weight in a strategic way. So this is an important follow-up question to the first question to ask, to make sure that you're getting the benefits of protein. Okay. As an example, let's say you get a grilled chicken salad. Ask the waiter, hey, roughly how much chicken is on that salad? And sometimes they'll be like, oh, it's about 3 ounces. Okay, well, if your targets are 50 grams of protein per meal, that's not enough. And this is where tracking food will make you an expert, because you will start to recognize very quickly. Promise you, if you work for a company or you're in a business at all, you can understand this stuff. But 3 ounces of grilled chicken isn't going to cut it if your goal is hitting 50 grams of protein. Okay. Always ask them to double it. Or if you don't want to double it, maybe you want to get steak and you don't want to pay for a double steak, you can always get an extra side of grilled chicken, kind of as a supplement to your main grilled protein source. Okay. Again, a lot of this is just awareness that you may not have. This doesn't take a long time. This isn't hassle to ask these basic questions. It's pretty easy to order a successful meal. You just need to have this thought process down. And that's something that I work on with my clients. You're not going to be successful if your success is tied to meal prep that sits at home in your fridge, or tied to being able to, be in 100% control of your meals all the time. However, if you have learned nutrition as a skill, flexible nutrition as a skill, and you have the knowledge, that's something that goes with you anywhere you go, whether you're at an airport food court, again, steakhouse, or eating at the office, right? Anyway, next thing you would do is you would pair it with some kind of vegetable. Again, we want high fiber, helps keep you full. Vegetables overall are typically low calorie, high water content, high fiber, keeps you full, and they taste great, especially when someone else makes them. That's my favorite part about eating out. You just got to order it the right way, and then the right stuff shows up in front of you and you don't even have to make it. So anyway, like I said, fiber keeps you full. I would always go for grilled. You could also do broiled if that's an option. Less oil. As a bonus here, if you can ask them to grill it with butter or avocado oil or olive oil, that would be a bonus. Those are a little bit healthier fats than some of the seed oils they have these days. But anyway, bottom line is make sure it's grilled. Examples of low calorie vegetables that are going to be tasty but not take up a ton of calories: broccoli, broccolini, asparagus, cauliflower, and pretty much any other grilled veggie blend. With salads, be aware of heavy toppings like nuts, fruit, cheese. Again, some of this stuff is just common sense, being aware of it, right? Always ask for dressing on the side. Dip each bite of salad in the dressing. It's like magic for some reason. If you do it that way, every bite of salad will get dressing on it, but you will use so much less dressing than if you, let them ladle it over your salad. It ends up being like a cup of dressing, right? I also ask for cheese on the side, because that's something that's difficult to take off a salad if there's too much. Okay. And then from there, spend the rest of your calories that you have to spend at that meal however you want, right? As long as you've got your veggie covered, your protein covered. Let's say you are someone eating, again, we'll do a 2,000 calorie diet example, and maybe you have a snack that's 200 calories. That leaves 600 calories for each meal. 600 calories breakfast, lunch, dinner. You could get your protein covered and only spend, a handful of calories, and probably have 300 calories left over to spend on some kind of fun side. So that could be either a cup of fries. You could do half a cup of pasta. If you wanted a dinner roll with some butter, right? And again, you have to track. If you're not tracking, how can you possibly know? First of all, if you don't have your targets dialed in, how can you know what to aim for? And if you're not tracking, how can you know if you're hitting those targets, right? And again, this is something that is absolutely essential to learn as you make it to your goals. The cool part about having someone walk you through what your targets are and how to track food is, when you reach your goals, you will know this stuff intuitively. You're going to know how to put together a plate. It becomes very routine. Just like riding a bike is something none of us could do before we tried, and then eventually it becomes second nature. This becomes second nature too. And also, the idea should be to reach your fitness goals as fast as possible. And when you're doing it in a way like this, where you have clear targets, you have clear boundary lines, and you've got different strategies you can use, it just becomes much more efficient. And then again, you understand how you got there, so you're able to keep those results better. That's my thought anyway. Couple of other random tips. Don't be afraid to ask for substitutions and alterations. It just takes a second to be like, hey, is that grilled? No, can you grill that instead of, deep frying it? Things that I like to do, asking for sauce on the side, dressing on the side, no breadcrumbs if you're having like a salad or meat, no croutons, no cheese. Ask for light oil if something is sauteed or whatever. Obviously, ask how the meat is prepared. You don't want to do anything that's fried or breaded. You always want to go for grilled or broiled would be fine too, right? Last thing I was going to mention on here, and this is something you can do on your own, something you can at least try on your own if you have the ability to try. And if you don't, this is something that I do with my clients that pretty much guarantees a 100% success rate with whatever meal they have coming up. And I call this a menu audit, where we kind of forecast the future and look ahead at what's going to be going on. And this is one of my clients. This is an example of what this would look like. So basically, he sent me a screenshot of a picture of the menu that was in front of him, and I sent him back my suggestions. This specific restaurant had a lot of seafood, and so I circled the option that looked, best in my opinion, because it had a lot of protein in it, right? And then this is actually another client, and he's taking his best guess at what looks best to him: ceviche, scallops, steamed bass, and black miso cod. See, what's cool is when you do this correctly a few times and you get some training on this, you begin to recognize, I know what to go for here. I know I need to find my protein source. I need to make sure I have enough of it. And then I need to get some kind of veggie, and then I can enjoy the rest of my calories. See, that's what he was saying. He said, if I did a treat, I would enjoy the pavlova. So, again, you have to know what your lifestyle is, and you really need a method and a strategy that works regardless of where you are. And that is what success long-term will come down to when it comes to fitness and keeping your results, right? This is another handy little tool I give my clients, again, because you should be tracking food so that you know where you stand. You need some kind of way to do it. Obviously, you're not going to be bringing a food scale to lunch. I wouldn't ask my clients to do that. I don't do that. But just getting a general look at, how much is 3 ounces of meat? How much is a cup of rice, right? This is a simple little hand guide that can help you track things a little bit better. I always tell my clients, not tracking anything never works. 100% of the time, there's a 100% failure rate with not tracking your food. Doing your best works 100% of the time. There's always enough information there. As long as you give it your best shot and you track something, that's always enough information for us to know how to track your progress and for me to guide you on what you should be doing next, right? Hope that was helpful. If you would like this Google Doc that I just walked you guys through, then drop the word notes down in the comments. I will see that first. Sometimes it takes me a minute to go through my inbox. So if you want the notes quickly for either you or someone that you think would use this, if you know someone who travels a lot, eats out a lot, and they feel like eating out is the thing that's ruining their progress, this would be helpful to share with them. So if you want the notes, or if you want even just this little hand guide snapshot, drop the word notes in the comments. Also, if you are an executive and you're in a place where you're really serious about losing the rest of the weight, again, sometimes it's just the last 10 to 20 sticky pounds that doesn't want to come off, or you want to regain lost muscle mass. So you want to not just lose weight, but lose weight and tone up while conserving energy. Then obviously shoot me a message or drop a note down below and we'll connect on it and see if it's a good fit. Hope you guys are having a great Monday, and I will be back on here